Tired of the negativity? Looking for a shot of optimism? Well, I have an inspiring story to make you smile right after this. This episode of Misfits and Crackpots is brought to you by the Well-Crafted Story Workshop. Struggling to connect with your audience and attract new clients? Transform your speaking skills at the Well-Crafted Story Workshop with Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson and yours truly, Dr. Danny Brissell. In just 2 days, master the art of crafting compelling speeches that convert listeners into clients. Whether in-person or virtual, you'll get personalized attention in an intimate group, learning not just from expert coaches, but from fellow entrepreneurs. Don't let another opportunity slip away. Get your free story blueprint today at wellcraftedstoryworkshop.com and turn your story into your most powerful business tool. Your success starts here. Visit wellcraftedstoryworkshop.com now. You're just a well-crafted story away from 7 figures. Hello there, my friend, and welcome to Misfits and Crackpots, short, inspiring stories for busy people. I'm Dr. Danny Brissell. This is a podcast for those interested in extraordinary stories about ordinary people and companies. Consider it your dose of positivity and inspiration for the week. Anais Nin said, "We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are." This week's success strategy: perception is reality. There are 2 fundamental concepts that intertwine to create the fabric of our understanding: perception and reality. While these terms are often used interchangeably in casual conversation, they represent profoundly different aspects of how we interact with the world around us. To truly grasp the complexity of human behavior, decision-making, and societal trends, we must first understand the nuanced relationship between perception and reality. To be clear, perception and reality are 2 very different things. At its core, perception is our mental impression, the way we interpret and make sense of the information our senses gather from the environment. It's a deeply personal and subjective process, influenced by our past experiences, beliefs, cultural background, and even our current emotional state. Reality, on the other hand, represents the objective truth of how things actually exist, independent of our individual interpretations. That said, perception acts as a lens on how a person views reality and therefore can become one's reality. Translation: people tend to see what they want to see. Or, as Andy Warhol famously said, perception precedes reality. It's true. That is why there are people who flaunt their political or religious beliefs without considering other points of view. Catch any commercial and the advertiser is manipulating the audience to see their products in a positive light. Give a doll to a little boy and a little girl, and it is likely they will have drastically different reactions. While some look at a glass as half empty, others see it as half full. Ironically, people want to think of themselves as the directors of their stories, but most tend to be actors following the crowd. See, people have a fear of missing out, and that is also how trends, fads, crazes begin, however irrational. This fear of missing out, also known as FOMO, is a powerful psychological force that drives much of human behavior. It's the anxiety that an exciting or interesting event may be happening elsewhere. One only needs to look at social media to see the phenomenon. FOMO can lead people to make decisions based not on their own desires or needs, but on the perceived actions and experiences of others. Consider the rise of social media influencers. These individuals have mastered the art of creating a perception of an ideal lifestyle, often carefully curated and not entirely reflective of reality. Yet, millions of followers aspire to emulate these lifestyles, buying products endorsed by influencers and visiting locations they promote. The perception of the influencer's life becomes more important than the reality of the follower's own experiences. Nowhere is this more prevalent than in investing. While people envy the rare examples of those who get rich quick, they ignore the perceived boring route of growing their investments over time. Perceptions drive markets. The stock market is a prime example. Stock prices are not just a reflection of a company's actual value or performance, but also of investors' perceptions and expectations. A company might be performing well financially, but if investors perceive trouble on the horizon, the stock price could plummet. Conversely, a company might be struggling, but if investors perceive potential for future growth, the stock price could soar. This phenomenon isn't new. One need only to revisit Holland half a millennium ago. In the 1590s, Dutch botanist Carolus Closius created a botanical garden at the University of Leiden. One flower in her garden quickly rose in prominence in the Netherlands: the tulip. Tulips weren't native to Holland. No, wild tulips grew throughout Turkey and Central Asia, and early cultivation began in Iran around the 10th century. Commercial Turkish tulip cultivation began during the Ottoman Empire, and tulips became one of the most prized possessions of Ottoman sultans. Their exotic beauty was not lost on the Dutch affluent, as tulips quickly became luxury items destined for their gardens. Naturalists learned that tulips could be grown from seeds or buds that grew on the mother bulb, while bulbs that grew from seed took 7 to 12 years before flowering. The eager Dutch horticulturalists discovered a bulb itself could flower the very next year. In the mid-17th century, the Dutch enjoyed a period of unmatched wealth and prosperity. Newly independent from Spain, Dutch merchants grew rich on trade through the Dutch East India Company. With money to spend, art and exotica became fashionable collector's items. These collectors became enamored with tulips, whose bulbs produced striped and speckled flower patterns rather than a single color. As these broken bulbs were rare and unpredictable, demand surged. Tulip mania was in full swing. From December 1636 to February 1637, tulip prices spiked. Some of the most prized bulbs, like the coveted Switzer, experienced a 12-fold price jump. Many paid more than 300 guilders for a tulip bulb, the equivalent of what a skilled craftsman earned in a year. In fact, one trader paid an extraordinary 5,000 guilders for a tulip bulb, the going rate for a nice house at that time. The frenzy reached such heights that people were trading their land, life savings, and anything else they could liquidate to get their hands on these precious bulbs. Tulip bulbs were even being used as a form of currency. In fact, an entire industry of growers, traders, and speculators emerged, all seeking to cash in on the craze. For all their efforts and money, Dutch tulip bulb speculators were rewarded with flowers for about a week. The frenzy eventually subsided, but not without causing many broken friendships and reputations lost. Defaults on tulip bulb loans caused a certain level of culture shock by undermining societal expectations in an economy that had been built largely on trade and elaborate credit relationships. The aftermath of the tulip bubble was severe. Many individuals were left financially ruined, having traded away their homes and businesses for bulbs that were now worth a fraction of their former prices. The Dutch economy suffered a significant setback, and the event left a lasting impact on the nation's economic policies and attitudes towards speculative investments. And while the phenomenon may sound silly to modern readers, it's nothing new. The power of crowd psychology is real. It's human nature. Indeed, this pattern of irrational exuberance followed by a market crash has repeated itself numerous times throughout history. To entice people to visit his circus, the great mid-19th century showman P.T. Barnum would attract large crowds in towns with dazzling parades, complete with exotic animals, human oddities, and a highly decorated wagon for his circus band. Seeing this, politicians in the late 19th century picked up on this form of attracting crowds. Minus the exotic animals and human oddities, they began using bandwagons when campaigning for office. So, when people decide to join in a cause or movement or craze because they perceive it as being popular, they are said to jump on the bandwagon. As absurd as tulip mania sounds, How will future generations view the Beanie Baby craze, the dot-com bubble, or the allures of the subprime housing market? People perceive what they perceive to be accurate. We create our own realities based on those perceptions. And even if our perceptions feel real to us, that doesn't mean they are necessarily factual. The lens through which we perceive reality is shaped by our prior experiences and cognitive distortions. So, the next time you disagree with someone, take a deep breath. You may be wrong. They may be right. Reality is often blurry. It really depends on one's perception. See, friend, inspiration is all around us. You just have to look for it. Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another inspiring story about misfits and crackpots. Misfits and Crackpots is a production of Success Media, produced by Terrence Wishner. Sound effects by Alessandro Lucati, courtesy of Pixabay. Thank you for tuning in. If you love today's story, there's so much more to explore in the book Misfits and Crackpots by yours truly, Dr. Danny Brissell. Grab your copy now on Amazon and dive deeper into the extraordinary lives of those who dared to change the world. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with fellow misfits who love inspiring stories. See you next time.